Dominique, welcome. It's such a pleasure to have you with us today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure for me as well.
Dominique, I love to hear the birds singing in the background. I'm sure this will be a very joyful conversation.
I mean, it's real. So sometimes I do a video call and people think the backgrounds and the noises are some sort of new special AI effect, but no. This is my garden, real birds, real trees, real everything.
I love it. And I also love your incredible journey. You're among the leadership luminaries by 1 million years of joy. And I saw that you call yourself part time girl boss and part time mermaid. So
Sure.
we have lots to talk about. One of the first questions that I have for you relates to We Moving Stories that you created 5 years ago. Can you share with us what was the inspiration when you created this new venture?
Yeah, actually, that's a interesting question that people ask me a lot. And my answer has changed a lot over the years as well. And I think that has mostly to do with my comfort, my level of comfort with being vulnerable. I think, let's say my answer 5 years ago would have been the following. I think I worked in the cultural sector for a few years and organizing events. And in those events, we paid a lot of money for keynote speakers. And I felt like so many times those keynote speakers were not moving the audience in the way that I hoped and that we paid a lot of money for. I felt like a lot of people were just on their phone or like happy that they had a day off. And it got me thinking sometimes I actually have some friends or some people that I know that would do this for free and could do this much better. So first my answer would have been more business orientated, saying, okay, we can bring some more realness into the business world for less money and more vulnerability in and impact. Now over the years I have also maybe realized that there was a much more personal reason behind starting something as personal as moving stories. So moving stories is moving stories are people who know what it's like to be ignored, overlooked, stigmatized, or even excluded based on part of their identity. And sometimes that is something visible, so something that people see and people have an opinion on. And sometimes that's something invisible and something that people think they know something about. And our community is so big now. We have more than 150 moving stories. And the inspiration for We Moving Stories has been my own moving stories. When people ask me, where do you get all these moving stories that share their stories in your program? I always say, like, every one of us has moving stories, right? We just have to be like ready enough and vulnerable and comfortable enough with ourselves to be able to talk about it. And I think when I started moving stories, I was not open and comfortable enough yet with my own story to talk about it. But over the years, being surrounded with so many moving stories, it definitely fueled my strength and my level of comfort with myself to talk about mine as well. So I think the two moving stories that unconsciously 5 years ago inspired me was one that I grew up in a very aggressive, violent home. And that was something that influenced me a lot, of course, as an adult. But it was also something that I didn't know how to navigate in the adult world. I don't want people to pity me or see me as weak. So it was a moving story that influenced me a lot, and I didn't know really what kind of place that would have in my life publicly. Another moving story that happened, I would say 1 year before I actually started We Moving Stories, is that I had an unplanned pregnancy of someone that didn't really care about that. So that was something that was emotionally so hard for me, mostly because I felt it was something so stigmatized for women. I thought if I talk about this unplanned pregnancy, people will think I'm irresponsible. People will think I'm easy. I was mid 20s, so I was like, okay, I don't want people to know about this, so I kept it a secret completely. And I think again, this is the effect of a moving story, right? When you think society will have an opinion about you without knowing the story, and you prefer to hide it. So I think it was these two parts of my life that wanted to create a space where people could be their complete self and not in a victim mode, but almost in an expert mode, like, okay, from my story, I have learned this, this, and this, and this, and you can learn from that. And we can learn together from having a conversation about these moving stories. So, yeah, like I said, my answers changed a lot over the years, but I'm still not fully comfortable. I'm noticing when I talk about this, I'm still thinking, what will people think that I have been through these things or that this is part of my life? But I'm comfortable enough now to say, yeah, those are the reasons personally that I started We Moving Stories, and that has fueled me to do better all the time and to create amazing programs and to create an amazing community, because I know what it's like when you feel like you cannot talk about something, and I just don't want anyone to feel that. Like, I care so much about the community that we created because they have helped me to reach where I am now, so I can answer your question.
Thank you for the courage that it took to share your own journey, your own struggles
Yeah.
with the world, because it's very easy to put labels on people, and it's also very powerful what you've created in terms of your community.
Hmm.
And it's just so beautiful. Before we talk about your community, I was curious if you can help us understand how what you just shared in terms of your second story and that unplanned pregnancy, how has that changed you?
Yeah, I didn't tell anyone until about 1 year ago. So this happened about 6 years ago, and not until last year that I opened up about it. And keeping it a secret, it impacted me in a way that I didn't realize until I was open about it. I don't know if that makes sense, but when you are keeping a secret, or when you're going through things on your own, perhaps you don't realize how much it weighs on you until you don't carry it anymore. So when I opened up about it last year to my friends, to and then also eventually, I guess, more publicly, because I when I opened up about it, one, I realized that so many women had gone through something very, very similar. And I had been feeling so alone, and so many women had been feeling so alone on something that quite a lot of women have experienced in one way or the other. And it really lifted a weight off my shoulders. It's not even about feeling courageous or brave. It's just like once I started to talk about it, I couldn't stop. Like, I needed to get it out of my body. I really believe that the body stores everything that you don't let out. Right? So once it was getting out, my body was like, okay, we need to release even more. And it connected me so much more with so many people, even with friendships that I already held so dear and people that I already admired so much. It created like a deeper bond for them to see a deeper level of me, and for me to share something that I was not used to share at all with someone. It created a deeper level of connection that I didn't know was even possible. And also with myself, I feel very proud now of myself, because I think it shows that 6 years ago I chose to tell no one. It shows kind of how I saw my surroundings, perhaps, but how I had a lack of trust in people that now, last year and this year, I don't have at all. I am surrounded by such amazing people that I had no doubt that anyone would respond with kindness and warmth, and that I didn't feel like, I thought the judgment I would face would be much bigger than the kindness I would face 6 years ago. And now that was not something I doubted about. I was thinking, okay, the people I will tell are people that are going to receive it with kindness and warmth. And it was actually everyone except the person that was actually involved in creating this pregnancy. Actually everyone but this person responded with the kindness that I needed. So I think in so many levels it has brought me.
This is where you see the power of vulnerability,
Yeah.
which
Yeah,
is
it's easy to talk
incredible.
about. Once you've experienced it, it's like contagious. Like, once I've experienced the power of vulnerability instead of talking about it, it's like, yeah, recommendation.
Tell us about your community and about the stories that you have heard to date that have truly moved you so profoundly that it has created a shift in how you look at life and how we basically treat each other on a human level.
Yeah. Okay. So me talking about the community of moving stories is like my favorite favorite topic. I love all the moving stories. It's like sometimes we have a live program, which means that the moving stories actually also come to the venue. Sometimes when we are in the car all together, it almost feels like we're going on a beach trip because it's just so fun and so full of life and joy that we almost forget that we're going to work. And I think that's the special part, right? When I talk about the moving stories topics, you know, far from someone with depression or someone with autism or someone who has a chronic illness or someone who has been to prison or like we have it all. People see it as weaknesses. People see it as poor them. People see it as how can we help them? How can we support them? And it's like once you meet the moving stories community, all of those thoughts go out of the door because the power that is in every single individual of moving stories makes you forget that you felt sorry when you first heard their story. It makes you forget that there is a us and them because that doesn't exist, right? I think every single story has moved me on different levels, sometimes because I had no idea that it existed. Right, with so many moving stories, we just don't have the knowledge. So I have never heard about the topic, and it moves me in a way that I'm thinking, wow, I learned so much. So something new, and how someone is navigating that. Sometimes there is a story that connects to one of my own moving stories and it connects on an emotional level because you can resonate. But sometimes it's also a story that I cannot resonate with on a practical level, but the feelings below it, like the undertone, the emotions that that person is describing, that is usually something that everyone can relate to because we've all felt lonely at one point. We've all felt like the odd one, or we've all felt the imposter or insecure. So there's not one moving story that have moved me more than the other. And sometimes it's not even about the actual topic of the moving story, but just like the amazing person that is behind it that you can just not stop listening to. Or sometimes I need advice and I'm calling a specific moving story that has nothing to do with that situation, but I just trust that person's opinion completely on life. So yeah, every moving story is so moving, and not just moving emotionally, but sometimes it also brings you into this action mode of moving, like, okay, I can do this, like you did this, I can do this, you're with me, I'm with you. And I also love to see the relationships that start within the community, right? People becoming friends, people excited to see each other again. Sometimes the moving stories say that the best part of doing a moving stories program is to see each other to see each other again, because even though their moving stories topic has nothing in common, usually there's so much like love and connection between the moving stories. And I see that every time a new moving story joins the community, the amount of support that that person can count on, not just for programs but just for doing life, is it has shown me a new level of caring and love that I didn't know you could get from a community. Yeah, I'm just so proud honestly to just be part of it, because sometimes when I doubt myself of, okay, what am I doing, like I did it wrong, or just like personal doubts, I'm thinking, but I'm part of this epic community, so I must have done something right.
Beautiful. And you've actually created a community that could have helped you while you were going through the struggle that you described 6 years ago.
Yes, yeah. Without realizing it, they have completely fueled me with power and strength and courage. And besides all of those big words, they have fueled me with just being completely comfortable with who I am. Like sometimes comfort is more powerful than strength and courage and bravery. Just the feeling comfortable with who I am, how I talk, how I lead, comfort level brings more strength than when you look for courage or when you look for really big things. And yeah, this community has is constantly doing that for me.
Amazing. And do you have gatherings or meetings on a regular basis where everyone comes together, particularly if someone new joins? How does it work?
I mean, our programs are ways that we get together in completely different teams all the time because every program requires a different team of moving stories that does that program. So sometimes a program is specific on a topic, let's say mental health. So we have all
Mhm.
types of moving stories, something to do with mental health, sometimes sexuality, sometimes neurodiversity. But a lot of programs are also very open in terms of topics. So we show the diversity spectrum by putting a lot of different moving stories together. So those are ways that we see each other before and after a program. We also meet one time per year for our annual moving stories party, but we obviously are such a big community and very worldwide, very international, so sometimes it's hard to see everyone face to face because not everyone lives in the same country, same cities. But personally, I have a lot of just catch up chats with people
Mhm.
just during the week individually. And I love to see when, without me being part of it, moving stories hang out with each other as well. And I just see on Instagram like a story afterwards of thinking, hey, I know these two. Or sometimes I introduce people to each other and they're like, Dominic, we already know each other. Like, of course. I'm like, yeah, sometimes I get lost of who knows who. So yeah, usually we do a lot online because of these international parameters that we're dealing with. But yeah, if we can, we gather face to face. And now the 5 year anniversary is coming up, and yeah, I'm already having some ideas of how to celebrate that. Maybe less online and more in person. But yeah, I think there are a lot of personal connections. Next week, for example, I'm going on a trip for moving stories, and one of the moving stories is coming to my house to cat sit my cat. So it's like, we're so connected. Even if we grew so much, I feel like we still have very much that personal connection that makes it so moving stories. But on the other hand, there are so many moving stories that have such busy lives, like nothing is mandatory. Yeah, I think we do our best, but I love that it's not just me driving that coming together. I feel like it's something that organically people also pick up themselves.
What have you discovered about joy from all these connections and conversations?
That there's so much more possible than I thought there would be. I think people have always said to me that I would have to choose between being successful or doing something that I love, or that I wouldn't be able to combine things that I would like to combine. And I feel like from quite a few angles growing up, I've heard that, like you have to work and you work so you can have fun. And I think moving stories has been a way, like it almost feels like I am jobless because I'm just absolutely loving moving stories so much. It doesn't feel like I'm going to work on any day, maybe except when I have to do administration or something. But in general, I just feel like I'm absolutely doing what I love. I also think we have a lot of amazing clients that have quite international characters. But I feel like all the people that we work with, they're part of the Moving Stories community. The companies that choose Moving Stories, like I think with all the clients, we build a relationship that we can just talk like humans instead of seeing each other as the job title that we have. And that brings me a lot of joy too. I think the nature of moving stories brings that we just also have amazing clients. I think also when it comes to joy, moving stories community and our programs that we're constantly innovating and recreating, it also just brings me joy because I love creating new things. I love hearing new ideas that I wouldn't be able to think of on my own. And that gives me a lot of joy as well. Yeah. When it comes to joy, I think joy should be in the motto of moving stories. Also, when we have programs with a lot of moving stories, sometimes a moving story last minute cannot join because of personal reasons. They're ill or they don't feel comfortable that day to talk about their moving story. I remember 5 years ago, I would be so stressed thinking, but the client and oh, and it's last
Mhm.
minute, what do I do? And this is horrible. I would feel so much pressure. And I think now, years later, it's like, we're working with humans, and if a moving story cannot get joy out of our program, it's not worth it for me or for that moving story to join the program. And it doesn't, the topics that we talk about are sometimes quite heavy, so direct joy is not something that we always get out of it, but some level of joy to be there, to share your story, to get questions that you don't expect, even if they are heavy, even though there are tears. I think some level of joy is something that we require. And if a moving story feels like this is not the day for it, then that's it. Then we just explain that to the client. We put no pressure on anyone to join, because I do think it's something that we think is so important that, yeah. So I think when it comes to joy, I can see so many angles, how it relates to me and how it relates to moving stories. I have to say also joy, the people, my colleagues, the other moderators, other moving stories, other caretakers in the community. Like, it just brings me so much joy to see the type of people that I have surrounded myself with. Personally and professionally, it has brought me so much joy to see people grow, to see people go out of their ways, to see people ask me if I can help them with their project. Like, I feel like I've seen so much growth on myself and on the people I surround myself with, that I think we all are constantly like applauding for each other, are constantly saying, "Yay, go you!" And I think that just gives me so much joy, even if I'm not involved. Like, even if I just see it happening, I'm just like, "Yay, go you!" And I just feel like I'm constantly being looked at, go you, yay, never being uncomfortable or ashamed of success or shining, which sometimes I have a bit, thinking like, oh, you cannot shine too much. And then there are people behind me like, what are you saying, Dominic? Shine, shine, go you, go you. So yeah, I think joy has just gotten a different layer, different definition through the years.
If there would be a recipe for joy or living more joyfully, what would be the three main ingredients in your view?
I think for me, I have never worried about being successful. I think when you have a good idea and you really believe in it and you get something out of it, whether it's personal growth or network or something that gets you going, I think that's it. I think there's so many people focused on wanting to be successful, wanting to be recognized, wanting to be seen. I've never ever worried about any of this. I just have Instagram since last year. Like, I didn't have any visibility whatsoever. I always say just focus on doing a super good job. Focus on doing it with passion, doing it with joy, I guess. And people will notice. People will notice. And I've heard that many times, that people, clients say like, we just want to do another program just because you love it so much, and we love it because you love it. And it's like, people see how much I love the moving stories people and the moving stories concept more than me wanting to be successful. And I think for me that has been the recipe of joy. Yeah.
I know you have recently launched Below the Surface, where you integrate your passion for scuba diving with leadership experiences. Tell us more about that, and what can the ocean teach leaders about themselves and how they lead?
I'm so excited about Below the Surface, because I think for me, again, it's something that is not focused on being successful or being strategic. It's simply combining two things that I absolutely love. I love the water. I love snorkeling. I love scuba diving. I could talk about that for literal hour. I bring it up in every single moving stories program. I cannot not bring it up. And then the moving stories methodology, all the research, all the knowledge that is there, I was thinking, why not combine the two? Right? Like, the water is such a magical place, and not just like in theory. The water actually changes our brain chemistry. The water actually gives us access to a level of creativity and safety and calmness that we can only feel when we're close to the water. So actually, I was thinking, knowing that about the water, that is exactly what we would like everyone to feel when we start a moving stories program. When we start to talk about confidence and leadership development, how great if the environment can give us all of these things. So again, it's about combining two things that I love, that many people have told me that it's impossible to combine, but I see below the surface as something that it's going to be a success, yes or yes, because it's an amazing experience for me. Even creating it was enough for me to think it's a super success already. And I think the below the surface methodology that is completely data informed, which is super exciting because from origin, I'm an anthropologist. So I'm not that data driven myself, I'm story driven. So for it to be very quantified, very data driven, has been a very exciting journey for me to learn about that. And honestly, in very simple words, the ocean and scuba diving, snorkeling, it's a very humbling experience for many people. And I think leadership development sometimes needs a little bit of humbling because I think development, growth requires us to unlearn a lot of things. More than learning new things, it requires us to unlearn things that we think we already know, things that we think we already have clear, things that we don't think we need to change. Usually it's more about unlearning, and I think the sport of scuba diving and the water and the methodology of moving stories and looking through a neuroscientific lens can bring us all of that we need to unlearn things, and with that learn new things about ourselves. So yeah, I'm super excited for anyone. I always say leadership is something, for me, informal leadership. I think everyone can be a badass leader. You don't need to have the title to be considered a leader. I'm honestly very excited for anyone to sign up for below the surface this summer and just challenge themselves in a way that they for sure haven't challenged themselves. And how cool is it to do a leadership program that is not in a classroom or is not in a hotel room somewhere. It's like, no, we're right on the beach and we're going in the water. It has taught me so much. I've done studying, I've done so much professional development, but I always still say the ocean and being a scuba dive instructor has taught me so much more about leadership. When you can calm yourself and someone else down underwater without being able to speak, it's not that difficult anymore afterwards to do it when you have so much more resources like your voice, like anything. When you can do it underwater at the surface, it's easy breezy.
If someone listening today may be struggling with something visible or invisible, what advice would you give them?
I think the most obvious advice is talk about it. However, since I know how difficult that can be, since I would say to 6 years ago to Dominique, talk about it. But you know what? I also respect my own pace and my own journey that I could only do that last year. It has brought me quite a lot of challenges and quite some suffering on my own to not talk about it. But I also don't know if I would have changed it because I feel like now I was in the environment that was right for me to talk about it. So maybe the most obvious advice of talking about it, I still think that that is a very valid advice, but realistically I also know that sometimes for whatever reason that's not possible. I think just make small steps, like sometimes as small as talking to yourself about it, surrounding yourself with friends that you trust little by little, a little bit more. And I mean, maybe I always think like, how can I be a person for someone else to feel safe? Usually if you are more conscious about being a safe place for others, usually people also somehow, even unconsciously, create that safe space. And then sometimes that means that, you know, you do feel that little opening to talk about. Yeah, it's hard. I want to give something concrete, but reality is also sometimes just very lonely and very hard to actually make some steps, but very small steps can make a huge difference in the end. Like, I didn't know that the moving stories community was helping me so much to get to the point that I am now, until now I'm here and I realize how much help I've gotten, but I didn't actively realize it when it was happening. So sometimes you don't have to jump out of your comfort zone, but maybe just be at the edge of it sometimes. And I think unconsciously that will plant already some seeds to at one point be out of that place of struggling so much. Yeah.
What is your view on individuals that may be struggling and that choose to actually reach out to AI
Yeah.
to seek advice, seek
Yeah.
comfort, guidance, rather than a real human.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the trick, right? Rather than a real human, because I don't know much about AI except for how I've been using it myself. I think a healthy combination, whatever that looks like, is necessary. But I think rather than a human makes me worry a little bit, right? If you only seek advice from AI. But if you are at a point that you just cannot open up about it to a human, fair enough that now there is an option to reach out to a non-human, to AI. If that helps. But I've heard some horror stories. I've heard some amazing stories about it. But I do hope that it's something that helps on the side to get you ready to talk to an actual person, because I do believe that that connection is hard to replace, because it's this reciprocity that makes it so beautiful. Me knowing that I can talk to my friends and talk to the moving stories about things that for me feel deeply personal or deeply emotional, and knowing that lands safe with them, that these people choose not to judge me, people choose to give me kindness, choose to give me warmth and grace. I think that's part of the beauty of sharing, that there is this choice in it. And AI, I guess it's always on your side superficially, but AI doesn't have a deeper level. I think it's just there for you, what it thinks you need. But I think that human choice of people being there for you, that makes a connection like no other.
Fully agree.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. The the AI thing. Yeah, it's tough because I think we all use it sometimes to just have like a little check. But yeah, I do think it should stay with that instead of building a relation with something. It's like building a relationship with a table. It's like it's in the end on a deeper level never going to give you the what any human could give you.
Indeed, as humans, we are social animals. We are made for human connection.
Yeah. I'm thinking if there was like more access to AI 6 years ago when I was going through my struggles with the unplanned pregnancy, I don't know, maybe it would have helped me to have something. Because I was so afraid to tell anyone that was just not an option. So I know that a person can be in a place where it's just no option to tell anyone. So it might give some space or relief or some taking some weight off your shoulders. But yeah, it cannot replace, but it might help you through sometime a little bit. Yeah.
And if you could give our listeners a challenge for this week based on everything we have spoken about, what would that challenge be?
Oh, that's so fun. A challenge. Well, maybe related to what we talked about. Vulnerability is something that you can choose the level of vulnerability, right? So maybe the challenge to actively be vulnerable. And for some people, that means saying that they didn't have a great weekend. And that's all, right? Like no explanation, nothing too deep, but just showing that you're not perfect, that you don't have everything under control. You just, I don't know, had a bad day. That can be vulnerability already. Or, like challenge yourself to go as deep as you feel comfortable with. But I always say, like, be at the edge of your comfort. So you don't have to just jump out of it like a leap of faith, but maybe a good challenge for the week can be, go to the edge and see what's there and share it with someone. It might help you, and I don't think you have much to lose. Okay, that's my challenge.
Fantastic. Dominique, thank you so much. It's been an immense pleasure to speak with you today.
Thank you.